What's up, everybody? This is Blake&VishSports. Sports. A lot has happened since the last time we streamed. We were kind of busy, so we weren't able to stream, but my God, the 49ers made a massive deal that I know a lot of you are interested in, but there were two other teams that also were a part of that massive deal, and the Eagles and the Dolphins. I mean, there's a lot to get into it. Blake, we haven't streamed in a while. What's going on?
Yeah, nothing much. Just watched a little bit of the Gonzaga ending with the Suggs shot, which was regarded as one of the craziest endings to college basketball. So that was pretty cool. And then obviously NFL's been slow recently, but a week ago stuff was going down. So
yeah, we missed the streaming window, but now we're here. We're going to break it all down. And I know why all of you guys are here. It's the same thing that we're going to be talking about for the next 2-3 weeks, and it's because the Niners made that move up. And a lot of you guys are Niners fans. I'm a Niners fan. Blake's a Packers fan, but I think he's becoming a Niners fan. But let's get into it, okay? Blake, which quarterback should the 49ers draft at 3?
Okay, so I think we are both under the assumption here that Trevor Lawrence is 1. I think we've known that since 2020, 2019, maybe.
2018.
Yeah, seriously. And then number 2 is looking like Zach Wilson. So that's what me and you are going off of here, right? That those two are number 1 and 2. If I'm the Niners, I am taking Justin Fields. I think I still don't know why he's fallen down the draft boards. Nothing's literally happened besides just the offseason and more scouts have been able to watch. But I think Fields is definitely the choice here. Most other years, I think he would honestly be the first quarterback in the draft. It just so happens that this year there's 2 other ones that are just as good, if not better, or at least that's what people think. So I'm going with Fields at 3. I would be surprised. I would be very surprised if it was anyone else. I don't think they should take anyone else at 3. It's going to be a quarterback. Which one? I think that's the question here. But what do you got, Vish?
For me, it's a no-brainer. This pick has to be Justin Fields. I'm a Justin Fields fan. I've been watching a lot of these quarterbacks over the last few weeks or months, actually. I've been spending a lot of time watching them, and for me, it's Justin Fields. It's a no-brainer. I think that his pre-draft has actually been kind of eerily similar to where he's just been over-scouted, I think. The same way Deshaun Watson was overscouted in 2017. I mean, I remember this time in 2017, some people were saying that Deshaun Watson might not be a first-round pick. That was crazy. Lamar Jackson, I thought similar things happened to him before the draft. A lot of people were overscouting him, saying he wasn't a first-round pick and all of that. Justin Herbert last year, not to as much of an extent, but similar things happened. And I think he's probably the most talented of the 4 quarterbacks. He's probably more talented than even Deshaun just because of his arm. His arm is a lot stronger than Deshaun's. But and now Justin Fields, to me, it's like the coverage is so weird. Everybody's just ready to write him off. I think he's the no-brainer pick. I think he's got everything you're looking for. He's tough. He's a good runner. He's a good thrower. He's a very accurate down the field thrower. He can function within the pocket. For the most part, he figures out where to go with the ball, and he's started games. He's played in big games, and he knows he's been a superstar his entire life, so he knows how to handle the bright lights. So from that standpoint, I think this is really a no-brainer. It should be Justin Fields for me. At least from everything I've watched, I think that he's without a doubt one of the 3 best quarterbacks in this draft. And to me, the top 3 are Lawrence, Wilson, and Fields. And Wilson and Fields are neck and neck for me. So to me, this is Justin Fields, and that's who they should take.
Yeah, and I wanted to bring up something too. So this is a little bit ago, but in 2017, it was a QB camp, and Fields was there because obviously he was, I believe, the number 1
QB collective.
Yes, QB collective. And you know who was coaching him up there, Vish?
Shanahan.
Yeah. So that was pretty interesting to just see that, because it's obviously very possible and probable that a reunion's coming up between those two. So that would be interesting. And I did want to ask you, so I know one of the things with Fields that is looked at as a negative is his release is not as fast as Wilson's, and it's like more, it's not the elite release or quick release that some other quarterbacks have. Do you think that could be an issue for the 49ers offense if he were to be drafted by them?
Little bit, but I thought his release looked quicker in his pro day. I think at the end of the day, like, do you wish he had Zach Wilson's release or Jimmy Garoppolo's release? Yeah, but I don't think that's the end all be all, because for the most part, he does everything else you're looking for, and releases can get faster. Look at Dak Prescott. Look at Dak Prescott's motion when he came into the NFL compared to Dak Prescott's motion now. Like, these things are things that people tweak and people work on constantly. And I'm sure Justin Fields, he seems to be a guy, regardless of what Dan Orlovsky said, and then re-clarified after talking to two people very close to Justin Fields. These are things that you can improve. And he seems to be a guy that's willing to improve and is all about working hard. So for those reasons, yeah, I do think he can improve it. Do I think it's a little bit of a problem? Yes, but I don't think that's the reason not to take him. I mean, the elongated release part, Russell Wilson has had the ball. He drops the ball down below his waist to throw the ball every time. And he's had zero problem with it. So I think if you're a really good quarterback, you can find ways to win with it. And I think that's a really small thing to keep harping on from a player who seems to have everything else down for the most part.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess since we're talking about all quarterbacks here, we can go the other route of Trey Lance, who's been really just popular among Niners fans with the whole trade-up idea. What do you think about him as a guy that the Niners could draft?
Yeah, so look, I think Trey Lance is it's weird because I always sound like a Trey Lance hater, but that's only because I don't think he should be the pick at 3. And I want to elaborate on why I don't think Trey Lance should be the pick at 3. Like, look, Trey Lance is very talented, elite runner, elite arm strength. Like, there is a scenario where Trey Lance could be a top 3 quarterback in the NFL 3 years from now. It's just that, 1, the sample size is small, that you don't have a lot to go off of. 2, he's not a very good down the field thrower. Regardless of what you want to say, Trey Lance is not an accurate down the field thrower at this point. And that's something I don't feel like that gets talked about enough, but he's not a very good one. And then with the other thing with Trey Lance is people are constantly talking about, oh, he called out his protection. He identified the mic in college. To me, that's so overrated. That's like such a small thing to identify. And this reminds me, and the things people say about Trey Lance and the reasons people hype him up, to me, just have no logic. It's just something that people keep hyping up with him. And it's like, if you remember in 2011, Jake Locker came out of college. He played in a pro-style offense. I'm not comparing Trey Lance to Jake Locker because Trey Lance is way more accurate than Jake Locker, who just wasn't an accurate quarterback. But everything that was said about Jake Locker was upside, great guy, first guy in, first guy out, played with Sarkisian in a pro-style offense, blah, blah, blah. But he just wasn't like a great quarterback. And Trey Lance, again, better than Jake Locker, no doubt about it. But the reasons why people say Trey Lance is better than Justin Fields just makes no sense to me. And somebody said this, and Fields is an accurate down the field thrower. Yes. You need to watch. You need to. It's not just me. It's also been charted. Justin Fields is one of the most accurate down the field throwers in this class. I think he's second behind Mac Jones. Trey Lance is, I think, by far the least accurate of the big 5 as a down the field thrower. It's not just the charting from other people. It's also there. It's visual evidence verifies this. I think Lance could be good. I don't think there's any way you can take him over Justin Fields. That's just my take on it.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on, like, definitely don't take him over Fields. I personally don't think he's the guy for the Niners. I think you take him top 10, but I don't think he's a guy that you want to have your hopes on in the first year that he comes in. I think a team like the Panthers would make too much sense for him to go to, where he can sit behind Bridgewater for a whole year, maybe even a year and a half if needed, and not have the pressure. Because if he comes into the Niners and he starts day one, if he does get drafted to the Niners, there will be the expectation, like, he's going to come in for Jimmy when Jimmy gets hurt in like 3 or 4 weeks. Like, that is kind of the expectation. And like you mentioned, the sample size is concerning. So
Look, it's not just the sample size. Like everybody brings up, oh, he played for NDSU, blah, blah, blah. I talked about this. The worst competition of all these quarterbacks was not played by Zach Wilson. It was played by Trey Lance. The best supporting cast for all these quarterbacks, one player had it, and that's Trey Lance. Like, do you understand how good NDSU is? Like, NDSU has won the last 4 FCS championships. They're probably going to win it next year when Trey Lance goes to the NFL. And again, these I hate these type of ways of talking about quarterbacks. And right now I'm being so hypocritical because I'm talking about it like that with Trey Lance. But I feel like the arguments for Trey Lance and the arguments against these other quarterbacks have zero correlation because for whatever reason, Trey Lance has been getting all positive buzz for having this when he has the same kind of things that you could hold against these other quarterbacks that are being held against these quarterbacks with them.
Yeah. I mean, you could, if you think about like all these guys, like the top 5, which is Fields, Lawrence, Wilson, Lance, and Mac Jones, every single one of them's team is better than their competition. Every single one of them. I don't even know why it's like used as holding against. Like you could say, oh, look at Bama's O-line and receivers. They're all great. Our Clemson's not. Our BYU's not compared to the competition. Same with Dakota State. Same with Ohio State. Like all these teams are just powerhouses for who they're playing against. So like not using it against one guy is just like, all right, you use it against Mac Jones, use it against everyone else too. It's kind of crazy.
Right. It's like relative to their competition, relative to the FCS, Trey Lance is playing with by far, like they're a Power 5 type team playing in the FCS. And look, I think it should be Justin Fields. A lot of you clearly think it should be Trey Lance. We'll find out on draft day, and we'll find out who the best quarterback is. Blake and I both have zero problems saying that we were wrong because this is obviously something we don't know. Like the draft is such a crapshoot, and 2, it's okay being wrong. Like it's just if we're wrong, then we'll learn on why we were wrong, and it is what it is. But I in my opinion, this pick has to be Justin Fields, and I think you feel the same way.
Definitely.
So now we've talked about Trey Lance and Justin Fields, 2 guys Niners fans are ecstatic about. Yeah. Let's talk about the guy who, if the Niners draft him, I think people are going to riot. I think people are going to go crazy. Yeah. And he's been the mostly mocked guy by all the league insiders seem to say it's Mac Jones, Mac Jones, Mac Jones. So let's talk about it, right? So we're operating under the assumption that Trevor Lawrence goes 1, Zach Wilson goes 2. Would Mac Jones be a bad pick for the 49ers at 3?
This is like, when this first came in, I thought it was like kind of like a meme or something. I was like, are they seriously considering Mac Jones? But the more, I think it's gotten a lot more hype over the last few days. Like he wasn't even talked about as being a top 10 pick until I feel Chris Sims, had him really high, right? Now it's starting to come into fruition. Like all these guys in the media are like, I really think Shanahan likes Mac Jones. And here's a couple of things on that. So a couple of the comparisons Mac Jones has made, or the comparisons of Mac Jones to his like pro players, it's been Kirk Cousins and Matt Ryan. Now, we all know what Shanahan did with Matt Ryan, Julio, and the whole Falcons crew. Matt Ryan had an MVP season. We know
Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, Kirk Cousins. Shanahan has said he really likes Kirk Cousins, the guy. He was with him in Washington. He was a part of that team. They had RG3 there too. So he does kind of like this more pocket passing quarterback that can make the throws, has the arm, super accurate. It would be definitely interesting. I just feel like the upside's limited with him physically. Now, I'm not saying he can't be a top 10 quarterback. I definitely think he has the capability of that, but the top 5 guys, you look at their physical talents, just their arm, their raw talent, like all the combination of those things basically. And I can't see him being that good. It'd be cool if I was wrong and he did turn out to be like that. So I don't think he would be the best pick for the Niners at 3. I don't think he would be a bad pick, but I think there are better options.
That last thing of what you said is exactly where I'm at. I don't think you could say Mac Jones is a bad pick just because the film is so good. Like, I am worried with Mac Jones also that he had only 17 starts. Like, that is a little scary just because it's a very small thing to look at, but if you look at the top 20 quarterbacks in the NFL or the top 23 quarterbacks in the NFL, they all have, outside of Kyler Murray, 20 plus starts in college. So it's not the end all be all, but that is something that worries me.
Factor. It's important.
Right. But when you watch him, it's like so good. The anticipation is so good. He always knows where to go with the ball. He's really good regardless of what the defense does. He's so accurate. Like, everything with Mac Jones in terms of Mac Jones's game, like in terms of what he's done, if you traits aside, it's really, really good. And so for me, like, I can't say it's a bad pick because in this offense, I feel like Mac Jones could be bust proof.
Yeah.
But my thing is, like, man, it's hard to take Mac Jones when Justin Fields is there. And so, like, I don't think Mac Jones is a bad pick. And I've seen some terrible reasons as to why Mac Jones would be a bad pick. One of them is, we already have Jimmy G, so we don't need somebody like Jimmy G first. I think Mac Jones is already better than Jimmy G. I think he has a better process than Jimmy G. I think he has a better arm than Jimmy G, and I think he's more accurate than Jimmy G. I think all those three things are true. And two, the thing with Mac Jones, the thing with Jimmy G is that the 49ers aren't getting rid of Jimmy G because, crap, like, we hate Jimmy G's play style. They're getting rid of him because, one, he makes too many mistakes in terms of his decision making and where to go with the football, and two, he gets injured a lot. So, like, play style aside, like, if Jimmy G was constantly going with the right place to the football and was staying healthy the last 4 years, I don't know if the Niners would just be like constantly pushing down every door and looking at every avenue trying to get rid of him. And if he was playing like that, he would probably be a top 12, 13 quarterback in the NFL. And then the other reason I always see is ceiling with Mac Jones. To me, it's difficult to put a ceiling on a player solely because there's also floor, right? Like, again, going back to the 2011 draft, and I don't know why I keep going there, but it just keeps coming to the top of my head. But, like, Jake Locker versus Andy Dalton, like, the ceiling with Locker compared to Andy Dalton is like, it doesn't even compare. But the thing with Locker and Andy Dalton is that you would prefer Andy Dalton 20 times out of 20 over Jake Locker. Andy Dalton started in the NFL for 9 years. That's pretty impressive. And he went to the playoffs, 4 times? So it's not like he was he's not a bad player. He's a pretty good one. So from that standpoint, I do think floor also needs to be taken into account. You're drafting a guy at 3 and he could have a great ceiling, but if he busts, it's all over. And look, I don't think you can take Mac Jones over Justin Fields. That's just the way I feel about it. But I don't think he would be a bad pick. And I don't think Niners fans should riot if Mac Jones is the pick.
Yeah, he wouldn't be like the absolute worst case scenario. It's just when you look at it in the sense that, okay, there's Justin Fields. This guy would be the number 1 pick in probably most drafts, right? It just so happens that there's a lot of good quarterbacks that are coming into this 2020 draft. So it's hard on that sense where you just don't want him. And he's not like, the super flashy guy where, like, you see Trey Lance and he'll stiff arm or truck a linebacker. You can see Justin Fields and he'll make a 60-yard throw across his body. Same with Wilson. He doesn't have that like wow factor, but yeah, he's super accurate. He would fit into the Shanahan system incredibly well. You could argue he would almost be the best fit out of any of these guys for the Shanahan system.
I'd say Zach Wilson, but yeah, it's right there.
Yeah,
I still think Fields is a better fit for the offense than we did outline this when we talked about Fields' fit in this offense. I still think he would be a better fit than Jones just because he's a better player than Jones for me. But I don't know. I'm getting so distracted by the comment section because I see so many narratives that I just want to bust through that people have just been reading from glimpses that other people have been talking about that are not true. So if you don't mind, I'd like to just, before we talk about the Eagles and the Dolphins, I want to just start taking some of these and really picking them apart and telling you why they're wrong. So first, in regards to the footwork, I don't know where you've been seeing this, but quarterback footwork is, I don't know. I'm not an expert on quarterback footwork, but I do know that like a lot of people have broken down Lance's footwork And it's not just his footwork to throw, but how his footwork lines up with the actual progression of the offense. And from that standpoint, he actually takes a few inefficient steps. I've seen this before. So you might want to check that out. I'm not an expert, but other people who are experts have broken this down. Check that out. There were a couple more. My bad. Sorry, Blake.
No, you're good.
Here. Okay, so I don't know if you actually watched either of those games, but what Northwestern and Indiana did in both of those games is not something college quarterbacks see a lot of. Like the stuff Indiana was doing was crazy. It was crazy. And Northwestern had a lot of rotations and they played a lot of split safety. And I would argue that the Ohio State, I'm charting that game. So we will be doing a breakdown of Justin Fields versus Northwestern San Jose Sunny. Just wait on it. We got you. But there was a lot of split safety coverage, and Ohio State's offense wasn't the most equipped to handle split safety coverage because they don't see a lot of it because of their run game. Blake, if you see any of these that you want to bust through, but
this one,
yeah, this is just not true.
I haven't watched incredible amounts of Kyle Trask. He definitely has really good touch on the ball, but he just does not strike me as like a.
He doesn't have arms. He doesn't have a great arm. To me, Trey Lance is working with Quincy Avery. Josh Allen works with Jordan Palmer. You guys need to, when you're coming at me, you guys need to come correct with these facts. Come on now. Trey Lance is not working with Jordan Palmer. He's working with Quincy Avery. And Jordan Palmer is Josh Allen's quarterback coach. But yeah, okay. Well, we were talking about Trask versus Jones.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, Trask is it's really not comparable for me. Jones is just more accurate, has a better arm, is much smarter. It's just I don't think they compare.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. He's definitely Kyle Trask's arm strength is definitely a concern, and there's not many quarterbacks that can like overcome not having a pretty strong arm. Like you have to be Peyton Manning, where you're just a robot pretty much, and your brain's an encyclopedia, and you know everything about what the defense is doing to overcome a weaker arm.
Yeah, but he doesn't have that either, at least from what I've watched.
Yeah,
I don't think he has that magical process.
Yeah,
all right. We've gotten a little bit out of pocket here. These comments, I love what you guys are having to say. Maybe we can do a show where you guys just come at Blake and I give you our reasons why. Because right now we got some topics to get to, and I've just been going off kilter a little bit because I've been really reading the comment section probably more than I've ever had done in any other of these shows. So we'll definitely do one of these where you guys just come at us. You tell me why Trey Lance is the best quarterback in this draft by far, and Blake and I will tell you why we disagree. And then 3 years from now, if you guys are right, we will shout out every single one of you and tell you that you were right and we were wrong. We have no problems doing that. How much stock do you put? The JT O'Sullivan thing was a parody. He was poking fun at Sims. It was an April Fool's parody.
I'm not familiar with JT O'Sullivan.
He's do you know JT O'Sullivan? He played in the NFL. He played for the Niners actually. He somehow started over Alex Smith for a season, for first 3 games in a season. Those were some dark days.
Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah, but no, his rankings, JT O'Sullivan's rankings were a parody. He was poking fun at Sims. Yeah.
That's funny.
This is why Blake needs to get on Twitter, people. He's missing out.
Clearly, yeah.
All right.
Did you want to move on? I was thinking this would be the next best one.
Let's get into it.
So we do a lot of Niners here, but we try to branch out a little bit. I know Vish could talk Niners 8 hours, 10 hours a day, but we are moving to the East Coast here with the Eagles. So they were at pick 6. They traded out to 12 with the Dolphins. We'll discuss them in a little bit, but they got a future first for doing so. They're at 12. What do you think, or who do you think they should take?
The Eagles? I mean, I don't have a particular person in mind
Yeah.
at the moment, just because I've been so focused on watching quarterbacks, like outside of like probably like 10 other people. I haven't really watched anybody in this draft. So like I'm not like fully convinced, like if they go corner, this is the guy they should go. If they go receiver, they should go. But to me, it's corner or receiver all the way for the Eagles. I technically, personally, I would prefer that they go corner, just because I think corner is more of a premium position, at least it is to me, than receiver. And I think it's a tougher position to find people in the mid rounds, just because when you're taking a corner, typically the best corners in the NFL go in the top 15 because they're the most elite of athletes. Yeah. And it takes a lot to play corner especially in the NFL. So I'd prefer they go corner, but to me, you can't go corner or receiver. If they go receiver, I think Jamar Chase is the guy they should go for, but I also think Jamar Chase is going to go earlier. I love Jalen Waddle. I do not think we talked about that they should target Jalen Waddle, just because I think Waddle and ideally what Rager is supposed to be is a little repetitive. And so, for that reason, I think Jamar Chase would be ideal. I do think 12 is too early for Bateman, so I don't think Bateman's an option there. So then it would be corner, and to me, it's J.C. Horn, Patrick Surtain, or Caleb Farley. And I think Farley's going to fall because of his back. I think Surtain to the Cowboys feels like a glove fitting a hand. Like, that feels so perfect. So I don't know if he gets to the Eagles. But, I think J.C. Horn or Patrick Surtain or Caleb Farley, those would be the three guys. And I think they got to go corner and get that position finally shored up.
Interesting. So, I originally was like on the cornerback wave. I mean, ever since even in 2017 when they won, like Jalen Mills played out of his mind good and they got good production, but I feel like it was more of a byproduct of their D-line just being like actually insane. And Malcolm Jenkins was a stud for them in that year. Their secondary since, it's been a little older. They lost Jenkins. Their secondary, specifically corner, has been like one of the worst position groups in the whole NFL, it feels like. They did bring in Darius Slay, but they still have a ton of injuries and other guys. So J.C. Horn makes sense there. Now, here's a position that they will not draft because the Philadelphia Eagles, along with my Green Bay Packers, refuse to draft this position at a premium, and that's middle linebacker. This team has never – I feel like I can't remember the last time, maybe like one D'Amico Ryans or London Flesher, one of those two guys was their last like really good middle linebacker. But
probably D'Amico, to be honest.
Yeah.
Jordan Hicks wasn't bad for a little bit.
He was pretty good when he was healthy, right? But Alex Singleton's their best middle linebacker right now, and that's probably not ideal. So if they like Parsons, if they like some of the other guys, like that would be good. But I think what they should do is probably go receiver. Right now, they're the pegging order of their receivers are – I'm going to include Dallas Goedert right here. So Goedert, they have Greg Ward, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, Travis Fulgham, and then Jalen Reagor. That's not the best for Jalen Hurts, who they're supposedly wanting to build around, and they said that's what they want to do. Their O-line's going to get healthier, hopefully, although they are older. So I would go receiver. We did mention, like, I don't think Waddle just fits with them very much. I would be very, very happy if I was an Eagles fan if they took either Smith or Chase. I think both of those guys would be the answer for them.
Yeah, I think so too, but I think both will end up being gone, just the way the draft is going to work.
They definitely could be.
And so the thing with Alex Singleton's funny you brought him up because Alex Singleton actually was the infamous guy to pick off Nick Mullins week 4. Yeah. But no, to me, I think the other position maybe that we're talking about. So I brought up corner, you brought up middle linebacker. The other angle I would go is this time for Jalen Phillips? Because Derek Barnett's a free agent next year. Brandon Graham is 33. Fletcher Cox is still a stud, but like the Eagles, when the Eagles have been good, it's always because they've had deep defensive line play. Yeah. And it looks like their Eagles are kind of just old across the board, but it looks like their defensive line especially, it's time to really shore that up. Usually they like the Eagles in 2017 were really the special thing about them was that they dominated both lines of scrimmage. Their offensive line was also very good. because that was still very good. Jason Peters, Lane Johnson, Brandon Brooks, Jason Kelsey. That was elite offensive line play. So from that standpoint, I just think that pass rusher, maybe Jalen Phillips, maybe it's time to go get him. That would be another option, but I think corner is probably their biggest need. Middle linebacker, honestly, outside of Micah Parsons, I have not watched a lot of the middle linebackers, and I think Micah Parsons is actually more of an edge in the NFL. I don't think he's very good in coverage, but so that's the way I feel about it. But ideally, I think corner, middle linebacker, edge rusher, maybe even offensive line, because they're getting up there too.
Quarterback, maybe. They like Trey Lance, maybe get Trey Lance. I don't know. They could go anywhere, man. They really could. They're in a tough spot.
They are in a tough spot, but they're also in a pretty good spot if they nail this pick to me, because they have the option of having possibly 3 first-round picks next year with the pick Miami gave them, and if Carson Wentz plays, I think it's, 85% of snaps? 75. Okay.
And I think there's another contingency with making the playoffs potentially. I forget exactly what it is, but basically if he doesn't get injured or he's not Carson Wentz of last year, then I mean, they're really set up for a nice rebuild if you're looking at it from that sense. Like, they have tons of picks. Cap space is a little iffy there, but hopefully some of the older guys get off the books.
Yeah, right. They're in a good spot to make a lot of good moves and smart moves. It's just about going and making them. But if you're an Eagles fan, like, I wouldn't be totally disheartened with what's going on. Like, you're probably not going to be very good next year, but
or the next couple,
you have an opportunity to really rebuild this and get your lines to look as good as they did in 2017. And Jalen Hurts is cheap, and maybe you do have something in Jalen Hurts. Maybe he is the quarterback of your future. So I wouldn't be disheartened if I was an Eagles fan, not at all.
It's not Nate Sudfeld, though. We have clear evidence Nate Sudfeld is not the next quarterback for the Eagles.
Really? I would like to see more of him. I wish Dougie P played him the whole time in Week 17.
Game. All right, I think it's a good time to move on now. So we did the Niners, did the Eagles. Now this team, man, Laramie Tunsil, this whole story, like the whole start of the story is crazy, but they did a couple trades. So they traded from 3 to 12 with the Niners. Then they traded up from 12 to 6 with the Eagles. What were your thoughts on the double trade? I think we both agree that it was solid. What are your overall just like thoughts on this?
If I had to pick a winner, in terms of this entire thing, like, the Niners are technically a winner, right? Because they're going to go get their quarterback. And whenever you're going and getting your quarterback, you're a winner in any trade. But the Niners also gave up a lot of assets to go up to 3. So they're not going to, in a situation, they're likely not getting the guy who's the best quarterback on the board. I think we can agree with that. Philadelphia is kind of in a hamstring position because I think they're missing out now on a premium player in possibly a Kyle Pitts. I don't love Jamar Chase, but I still think he's a very, very good player, so they're missing out on him. And same thing with Devontae Smith, who I do love. So for that reason, I think Miami absolutely killed it. They absolutely won this trade by far. For them, first of all, to parlay Laramie Tunsil, who, first of all, they should have never drafted in the first place because he should have gotten in the top 3.
Should be
right, but they drafted him at 12 or 13, so that was premium value. Then get 3 years of production out of him, or 2 years. 3 years. And then trade him for essentially now 4 first-round picks. Now they had too many first-round picks to play with, so then they get themselves back up to 6. And now, because of the way the quarterbacks are going, they're probably getting one of two of the players they would have targeted at 3. And they have a good chance to get a guy who I think is the best non-quarterback player in the draft in Kyle Pitts, or get a Jamar Chase or a Devonta Smith. I mean, what Miami's done here is incredible.
Yeah. So I think the whole beginning of it is just like hilarious. So obviously Laramie Tunsil fell on draft day due to a video of him with a banned substance. And so he fell. He was like, I'm pretty sure he was supposed to go to number 6 or 5 to the Ravens. They ended up taking Ronnie Stanley. So, I mean, they didn't really lose out on much. Like, Ronnie Stanley's awesome. They get Laramie Tunsil. They trade him and Kenny Stills for 2 firsts and a second. That is insane. So thank you, Bill O'Brien. And I think another thing with this too, Vish, I don't know if you heard about this, but apparently when the Dolphins front office told him what they were trading him for, Laramie Tunsil said, I would trade me for that too. So Laramie Tunsil, he knows. He definitely is a cool dude in that regard. And then, yeah, so I guess we can dig deep into like what they should do at 6. So you're thinking Kyle Pitts is your main option.
If they get Kyle Pitts, like, just watch out. My God. Because to me, I don't – if Kyle Pitts ends up being, like, anything but very good in the NFL, then I'll just be shocked. Because to me right now, like, in terms of just football-wise, like, obviously you don't know with him, like, in terms of the off-the-field stuff, like, we don't know those things. But in terms of him just football-wise, like, he's a great route runner. He's great after the catch. He's big. He's fast. His catch radius is incredible. He's an incredible contested catch player. He can line up as an X receiver. He can line up as a Z receiver. He can line up in the slot. He can line up inline. And I think the entire idea of saying, oh, move him to receiver is a load of crap because he's actually not a bad blocker. He's a willing and solid blocker. And moving him, if you can line him up inline, which you can because he blocks well enough for you to line him up inline, he will be a matchup nightmare. Linebackers can't run with him.
Yeah.
Corners aren't big enough to handle him. Like, Kyle Pitts is just fantastic.
He reminds me a lot of, I think a lot of people said Jimmy Graham, right? And I think that's cool and all. I would say Darren Waller of the Raiders is more of dude 6'5", plays like a receiver, but he can play anywhere, right? So yeah, that's the comparison to be made. And I'd say Darren Waller right now is probably the 3rd best tight end in the NFL. So a guy with those measurables, yeah, he looks like he could be special. I wouldn't take out Sewell either. If the Dolphins valued that O-line, they did their O-line
draft tackles last year.
Yeah, they did draft last year. I wouldn't say their O-line's the best. It's probably like average, but they have put like talent into it, so they could go that route also.
Yeah, I mean, they're just sitting in a wealthy spot. And I brought that comment up because Grant also says that, and I think that's actually a really apt comparison. He says he's basically a big Shannon Sharp, which, I mean, I guess he wears 84 and it kind of fits. But, yeah, he's 6'6" Shannon Sharp, which is kind of insane.
Yeah. No, he looks to be special. The only thing that is kind of concerning for me is, like,
his body.
No, not really that. You would think he would have dominated more in college, like statistics wise. Like, I don't think he was putting up like the insane numbers. Not that he should put up the insane numbers of like Jamar Chase or Smith, but like you would think he would have better or more yards and touchdowns. I think it was yards that he was a little lower on.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he only had 770 yards, which I'd argue 2 things with that. One, as good as Dan Mullen is, I don't think college offenses utilize the tight end as well as NFL offenses do. So I'll say that. And 2, he did play with a quarterback in Kyle Trask who put up good stats, who's a very good college quarterback, who I think has the opportunity to maybe be a fringe starter in the NFL. I think he's like a 3rd or 4th round pick, but that guy, like the catches he was forced to make to bail him out a little bit and stuff was I feel like that did hurt his stats a little bit. That's what I will say.
Yeah, that's my only thing where it's like you would think that like the way he's talked about and obviously his speed and catching, like he would have better stats. But yeah, that's at the end of the day, that really just doesn't matter. And GMs don't like look at that as much as they look at he's 4'3" and he was 6'6". So
I mean, that's probably the only criticism you can actually have of him, if it's a criticism, like even then. But yeah, I agree with you. So, guys, we've reached the end. It's time. I know you guys have been going off in the comment section. It's time for questions. Hit us with what you got. We're ready for you to yell at us about Trey Lance. We're ready for you to tell us what you feel, and we're ready to take them. We're about 40 minutes in, so we'll take questions for another 30 minutes. I think if, Blake, you see a good question, just pull it up.
Yeah, I thought this was an interesting one. We haven't really even covered this at all. So the whole Deshaun Watson thing, I think it's up to 21 people now accusing Watson of sexual assault. Do you think he'll even play, or do you think this is just going to blow over the wind in the near future? Or have you given it? We don't need to talk about it if you don't have thoughts on it.
I haven't. I don't know what's going to happen, but I think that there's no way he's getting traded soon because this looks bad. It does look bad. I mean, I don't have the details. He's not being. This is a civil case, right? It's not a criminal case. These are all civil complaints, but I mean, I don't know. It just doesn't look good, and I hope Deshaun Watson didn't do the things he accused of because I really like Deshaun Watson as a person, and I like Deshaun Watson, the football player, a lot.
Yeah, here's the angle that I thought of. So there's a report out there that teams are still calling about Deshaun Watson and maybe quote unquote buying low in the sense that they don't know, will he be suspended? Things of that nature. Will he even play again? Because you could make an argument that what if he does get accused and all of that with what he's done, that he could be out of the league. I feel like the NFL though it runs like a corporation, unfortunately, in the sense that won't happen and he will play. I mean, we've seen what happened with Tyreek Hill, John Brown, the kicker, that is, and things of that nature. So
Josh Brown, the kicker.
Josh Brown, yeah.
Yeah,
sorry.
but of course this at least the details of this, or there hasn't been evidence as ugly as or the Josh Brown situation, which was just disgusting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, let's move away from this to another topic. What am I studying? I'm studying computer science. I'm a junior in college. My career goal, I'm still not sure yet. It's definitely eventually I'd like to get into data science, but we'll see where things line up and what happens. Oh, did you see? 1 second. If you see a question, just pull it up, Blake.
We could do this one. Now, this is pre-draft, obviously, so there's a lot of moving parts here, but I'm interested to see what you have to say, because what I could have at 4, you could have at 1, which is pretty crazy.
I just think the draft. I have to see what he's doing the draft for me to do this, but we'll do this. How about this, Eder? Answer this question right after the draft finishes, and I promise I'll rank them right there off the cuff. Did you see? Look, okay, so you got to listen to what he actually said. He didn't say that he's the most refined and advanced QB in this draft. He said he's the only QB in this draft who consistently played under center, which is the most pro-style thing. And he said he played with a fullback. Look, those are also things that can be learned. Like the Niners like CJ Beathard because they saw CJ Beathard play under center in a pro-style offense. And to me, it comes down to whether the guy can play quarterback or not. And Trey Lance clearly can play quarterback. He's for sure a first-round pick at quarterback. But is he better than Justin Fields? I personally don't buy it.
Yeah. I think the whole pro style offense and this style offense is a tad bit overrated. When a guy is in college and runs that, I feel like the best of the best quarterback prospects can kind of switch between offenses, and it happens. So think of Aaron Rodgers in the sense that he played with McCarthy, where they would just say, all right, we're running Jordy Nelson, go deep, and then throw back shoulders to him. But now he's in a completely different offense. So the best of the best can obviously switch it up. So does it matter too much? I guess is the question.
I agree. Jamal asks a question here. Jones doesn't push the needle the way Fields or Wilson can. The 49ers didn't trade up to 3 to barely move the needle. Going up against Mahomes and for the next 10 plus years, you need a quarterback who can go toe to toe with him. I agree with that, but drafting a quarterback to go toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes is hard. Like Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen are two of the most talented players maybe in the history of the NFL if you encompass all their physical gifts. And then in my opinion, Rodgers is the most talented I've ever seen. So it's hard. I think that you want to get a guy who can execute your offense at least because the 49ers offense is elite first. I would love Justin Fields. I would love Zach Wilson, but I don't think Mac Jones. I wouldn't be unhappy. Like, I'm not going to come here and tell you Mac Jones is a bad pick. I wish they would have taken Justin Fields over. I wish they take Justin Fields over him, but I don't think it's a bad pick.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought. And I think it has to do with kind of like what we said. Like, it's tough to envision a guy who maybe doesn't have those physical traits of Wilson and Fields being like a top 5 quarterback. But, at the end of the day, if Shanahan thinks he fits in the offense better, then I guess that's all that matters. So
absolutely. That's what it comes down to. And I think that's where I stand. And I think that's where most fans should stand because unless you don't like Kyle Shanahan, because then you should. But I love Kyle Shanahan. Blake knows how much I love Kyle Shanahan. And because of that, for me, it's like I'm excited. And if whoever he feels is the best quarterback option, then I'm excited to see what he does with him because he deserves the opportunity to be able to pick whoever he wants. And this is a draft, and he's going to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm. And I did want to ask you too. Second round draft picks for the Niners. I know we've talked about Kadarius Toney. He's awesome. Are there any other positions that you think now the Niners definitely need to hone in on in the second round?
Corner and safety. Their secondary is 1-year contracts. Jimmy Ward has 2 years left on his contract. Jaquiski Tartt's a 1-year contract. And Jason Verrett's a 1-year contract. And the nice thing is that they can draft a high tools guy because he doesn't have to play right away in 2021 because the Niners have all their starters in their secondary and they're all good starters. But yeah, Andre Cisco would be awesome. But if you can draft the guy and have him learn your system and whatever, and then have him compete and be for the job the very next year, like the Niners just need to accumulate depth there. And that's where I think it would be awesome for them to target both corner and safety in the middle rounds of this draft. Richie Grant's another name. Okay, well, here's a guy that I know that kind of fits that mold. I think his name's Javon Hollard, Oregon. He played safety predominantly, but he also covered the slot a decent amount. I know the Packers were looking at him pretty heavy. He's going to be our next Demarius Randall, I think, safety to corner conversion. But he would be kind of the mold of like maybe a type of guy that you'd like. No, yeah, he's a baller. He is a baller. I like him a lot. I agree with you. He would be awesome. Interesting. Okay, and then I know this has been mentioned a lot, but that third receiver role, do you think they would take that in the second round? Or is that something that they would address maybe free agency or maybe later? You could, right? You could get like an Elijah Moore to play in the slot. But I still think there's guys on their team that could maybe handle that. I believe in Richie James, I think, more than the average person. I still believe that there's maybe something possible with Jalen Hurd, but that's not reliable. So there are names on the team that Travis Benjamin is another guy who's been pretty okay. I don't think he's ever been a number 3 receiver. He's always like a number 4, but he's an option for sure. But ultimately for me, the reason I'm against it, honestly, to be full disclosure, is I just think that the Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch regime has spent so many assets on wide receivers at this point. Yeah, and it's not just drafting a guy in the second round. Like they traded up 3 picks to go get Brandon Ayuk. They traded up 3 picks to go get Dante Pettis. They traded 2 picks to get Emmanuel Sanders. They've spent a lot of assets. They drafted Debo in the second round. They drafted Jalen Hurd in the third round. That's a lot of picks. Trent Taylor was a 5th round or 6th round pick. They spent a lot on receiver, and with other positions in need, it just hurts for me to watch them go and get another receiver. Yeah. To keep going back to the receiver. Okay. Right. That's interesting. That's where I stand. But that's just more of a personal kind of gripe I have as a fan.
You're just sick of seeing the same thing over and over with second, third rounders. And this, I mean, they have really spent a lot, and they obviously do have. I think there's enough there with Kittle, Debo, and Ayuk, all healthy, of course. Like, would getting a fourth really good target be that beneficial when those guys are already really good and they have maybe other guys like Richie James, who, will I say, looked like a Hall of Famer against the Packers in his – I think that was his first game, wasn't it, when the whole team was on COVID? He had like 180 yards.
I think that was his first start, yeah.
Yeah.
He had 188 yards, I want to say.
Yeah, it was like 180 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty nuts.
If you see another question, where do you guys – I'm actually genuinely wondering where you see this. I'm actually – again, I'm charting Justin Fields versus Northwestern. We will do a full film breakdown of Justin Fields versus Northwestern soon on this channel. I think next week is the goal to get it out. And I've charted the first 4 throws in going through exactly – I have it written down on what the defense was doing, what the offense was doing, what Justin Fields did. And his first 4 throws, he did not throw to his first read. So, I mean, I don't know where he can't read a progression. I genuinely don't even understand like what people mean by a progression. Do you mean going from 1 to 2 to 3? Because he's established that. I don't understand that.
I feel like it's something with the Ohio State narrative and how everyone just says they're like one-read quarterbacks. Because that's kind of been the narrative around 12-gauge Cardale, Braxton Miller when he was there.
Yeah, but none of those guys, like Cardale Jones was supposed to be a 4th-round pick. He was drafted in the 4th round. Braxton Miller was never supposed to be an NFL quarterback. That's why he was drafted in the 3rd round as a wide receiver. If you want to bring up JT Barrett, like JT Barrett was never supposed to be an NFL quarterback. And then Dwayne Haskins is the only one that kind of failed. And with Dwayne Haskins, at least, there are underlying issues with Dwayne Haskins in terms of his like there's been a lot of reported stuff in terms of Dwayne Haskins' lifestyle that seemed to hold him back, where we never got to see why the quarterback, like we never actually got a sample size of seeing if Dwayne Haskins is a real quarterback or not. Dude, nobody ever gave him the chance.
I mean, watching Washington, it was like actually one of the most difficult things, watching their offense out there. Like, never did I ever feel like, wow, this guy's that throw was insane. Like, I see why he's a 1st rounder when he was on Washington. Yeah, it was a small sample, but I don't know.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I don't get it. And there's no comparison, honestly, between Justin Fields and Dwayne Haskins as prospects. Fields is just a better player. Dwayne Haskins made his living on throwing crossers to Paris Campbell. Fields throws the football down the field.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of – I think that was one of the biggest criticisms of Haskins, or when people doubt him, is they're saying, like, he'll get 50 yards on a pass, but Paris Campbell's running for 47 of those, or the other receivers they had. But Fields is different in the sense that, like, a lot of their offense was, like, down the field shots and him making plays outside the pocket.
Yeah, I mean, Fields, in terms of air yard percentage and air yards thrown, Fields is number 1 in the 5 quarterbacks that
I believe
love in this draft. So, yeah. I mean, Vincent Johnson has been relentless with this question, so we will answer it. I have kind of just left it out because I feel like we've been talking about Mac Jones so much, but do I think there's any truth to it? Yeah, I do think there is some truth to it. I mean, where there's smoke, there's fire. It feels like a lot of people who have been connected to the 49ers in the past have really been harping on this thing that Mac Jones could be. I've not seen any rumors that link Fields. I personally haven't.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I've seen a lot of the Mac. I think it's been mainly like the analysts from like the bigger news places have said like, oh, like look out for Mac Jones. And I honestly did not believe it at first. I was like, no way they traded up to 3 and they're going to take Mac Jones. Now, if they do, like, and that's their guy, I totally get that. Like, you take the guy who you think's the best. And if that's Mac Jones for them, I understand. But it would be like just seeing how like the mock boards have fallen with Mac Jones being like end of first round type guy. I mean, we were talking about like the Niners trading back and taking him in the 20s. And now at 3, it's almost just like surreal how much has changed in such a small time frame.
Yeah, I like Mac Jones a lot, and I see where you're coming from. Honestly, though, I don't buy the fact that 3 is too high. Because if Kyle Shanahan believes Mac Jones is his quarterback, then there's no price too high to pay, and there's really nothing. Yeah, so that's where I stand on it. But to the rumors thing, I do think there's truth to it.
Truth, yeah.
He takes too many sacks staring at his receivers. I mean, the staring thing is kind of a little overblown. Like, do I wish Fields was faster with his process in the pocket? Yes, but Ohio State also runs a lot of longer developing plays. Ohio State's offense also doesn't have the most built-in answers to pressure compared to other offenses in this draft. It's a very college offense, and the site alerts with their read routes has been mentioned by basically every analyst who's pro on Justin Fields, so I'm not going to repeat their work. Just go check them out. There are flaws to Justin Fields. Absolutely, there are. But the flaws that people keep mentioning are just overblown, and the way people are talking about them are overblown. That's just the way I feel about it.
Yeah, I haven't watched Fields as much as Vish, so I think Vish is in more of the loop with those. But like, I think this is kind of the case, like you mentioned, of just a player being overanalyzed and overmocked to just the same spot. Do you remember, was it last year with Andrew Thomas, and he was regarded as the best tackle?
I thought Andrew Thomas, throughout the draft process, everybody said he was comfortably 4. And then a week before the draft, people realized he was going top 5. So the mock drafts changed from him going, I think 14 to the Bucks was Andrew Thomas's favorite mock spot for like the first 3 months of the draft process. And then right before that, like, they immediately changed it, and they were like, oh, Andrew Thomas is going 4 to the Giants, or he's going to go higher than people think.
Yeah, there's a lot of just like fluctuation with like underanalyzing, particularly overanalyzing. But like, I think Fields is like, like, people are saying if he'll fall out of the top 10, which is just ludicrous. Like, no shot. I don't know, man. I think he'll go top 3 at the minimum.
I think so too, and I think he should. I like the flaws. Like, I think where I'm at is that, like, he's obviously not a perfect prospect. There are a lot of things in his game that needs to be refined and stuff. But at the same time, the things he does do are like good enough to me where he should be a top 3 pick. He shouldn't, like, I feel like only his flaws are getting talked about, which is why I feel like I have to talk so much about the things he's good at, because I really like Justin Fields a lot. Nah, the QB that's most ready for the complexity of this offense is probably Zach Wilson or Trey Lance, or excuse me, Mac Jones. Trey Lance, okay, he played under center and he ran a few similar concepts to the Shanahan offense, but their offense wasn't as much. I feel like in terms of the throws they were asking him to make, in terms of the progressions they were asking him to read, because a lot of his throws were very defined play action, where it's a 1-man route or 2-man route, and you really have one place to go with the ball, and that place is open and he hits it. But like, Zach Wilson actually ran kind of a version of the Shanahan offense from wide zone at BYU. And then Mac Jones, Sarkisian has a pretty complex offense, and Mac Jones kind of executed it to perfection.
Yeah, no, Zach Wilson's offense would be awesome. I know we talked about it in the past. Yeah, I think he would just be sweet on the Niners. I hope he doesn't go there so the Packers can beat the Niners as usual. But
people ask these types of things all the time. Like, I actually don't. I hate doing this only because I have no idea. That's where I stand with it. Like, all these guys seem to be really cool guys, really good guys, and they seem to have positive statements only about them as leaders. And so that's where I stand, because I don't know any of them as leaders or as people or anything. So I would hate to say something that's not true based on somebody else's reporting, because I don't know them.
There was this Zach Wilson thing where he wasn't named a captain. And so people have like tried to harp on, like, is he a leader? They say like he comes from parents who are doctors, this, that. But they didn't know if he was going to be a starter coming in due to injuries and stuff, and then he was. But he's one of the guys who people have like tried to knock his leadership, and
but it was Walter Football, right? A non-reputable source, but people use that to bring him down.
Yeah,
I hate. This is what I hate. I actually hate. I'm going to go on a mini side rant, and I know you feel the same way, Blake. I just don't think you want to rant about it as much as me. But I actually hate the draft for this. Like, Blake and I are both 21, so we understand like what it's like to be 21 years old. And the fact that people constantly just put out take personal shots at players in the public eye like this, like questioning someone's work ethic, questioning someone's character, questioning those things are not like, I think that's personal. You're questioning someone's character in the public domain, and people just put this information out willy-nilly so freely, and it's like a 21-year-old. Can you imagine how you would feel if at 21 years old? I certainly would hate it if a bunch of people would be questioning you and your work ethic based on flimsy pretenses. I just don't get it.
Yeah, no, it'd definitely be tough, and it's not like people that are familiar with them either. It's people that have like never met them, and they just like, you know, run off on stories. And
NFL talent evaluators.
Yeah, no, that would definitely be unfortunate.
Even if it's true, I would prefer if people just don't put out that information because it's so personal.
Yeah. Here's
any chance.
Oh, my bad.
Sorry, go ahead.
I just took this one off. I was going to pull it up. So we do have something in the works. We have two things, actually. So one of the main guys who's always in here, Jamal Armstrong. I think if you've been in any of our streams, you've seen his name pop up at least a couple times. So we're actually planning on trying to schedule something with me, him, Vish, and another guy as well. So yes, we do try to have fans on as guests. Reach out to our email for further inquiries on that type of stuff.
And I'll post it in the comments right now.
Second thing, we know Grant does this. He has like a phone call-in thing. We're going to try to figure that out so we can have one of those too, like a phone call-in, and it's like an open discussion with someone directly in that sense. So yes, Gammon Brown, we are trying to do that.
We will set it up. We'll figure those things out. We got a lot of stuff in the works that we just haven't been doing yet. We've been busy. I mean, we're streaming about this trade a week too late. So yeah, you can just imagine. Any 49ers guest interviews? I mean, we're trying. We'll see what happens. We're trying. That's all I'll say. We're trying. Do you guys have any more questions here? I don't think this is true. I think that this is kind of a reductionist way of looking at what Mac Jones did, because one, I think Mac Jones' supporting cast wasn't actually that good because Waddle got hurt. I don't think it was anything as good as Tua's last year.
I mean, compared to Tua's, yeah, but compared to most colleges,
Trask had Kyle Pitts and Kadarius Toney. So.
No, I was gonna say like Florida has amazing talent, but like a team like, I don't know, like if he went to Texas A&M, do they have any like super studs like that? I get the premise, but yeah, it just like takes away. Like Mac Jones was still phenomenal, and it's not like he was getting dragged by this team. I think that's the narrative people like try to make out, and that like, oh, Greg McElroy and AJ McCarron did it. Like they don't need Mac Jones, but like the thing is those guys were dragged there. Mac Jones is one of the reasons that Alabama was so good, and
yeah,
he got the best out of those guys.
They weren't a run-centric offense like they were with AJ McCarron and Greg McElroy. There was a reason that Mark Ingram was the guy that was in the Heisman conversation then, and then Trent Richardson, right? And now it's Devonta Smith, Mac Jones, and Tua, the quarterback and the receivers. So there's that reason. I would prefer the pick not to be Mac Jones. I would prefer the pick to be Justin Fields. But I feel like the criticisms of Mac Jones have just been too harsh.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Mac has McCorkle red flags, arm strength, DUI. I mean, I cannot talk about the juvenile or all of that because I don't know him. I mean, the DUI, it does scare me a little. I feel like it hasn't been talked about enough, but that's just
really. And
I think his arm is more than strong enough, personally.
I think so. The DUI, I guess, like, I didn't know about this until recently. Basically, when he was a freshman, I think he was 18
19. 19,
yeah. 19, basically, he got into a car. He got into an accident, basically, and he had to try to pass a field sobriety test, which he did not. I think he was suspended for like a game or two, but like since he was the third string quarterback behind Hurts and Tua, like people haven't talked about this. So that's just like the story for those who don't know. I mean, I really didn't know until recently either. I hadn't really heard much about it either, Vish. So
yeah, for sure. Here's one I wanted to get. If Joe Burrow was so good, why didn't he start over Dwayne Haskins? Like, I don't get this.
Yeah.
College, first of all, there's recruiting politics with college. So that's one thing. Tua was a 5-star recruit. I think Mac Jones was a 3-star or 4-star recruit. And 2, college coaches can be wrong.
Yeah.
Like, in no universe should Kirby Smart have picked Jake Fromm to start over both Jacob Eason and Justin Fields. Like, I don't even think Jacob Eason's like the greatest quarterback in the world, but he's definitely better than Jake Fromm, and Justin Fields is definitely better than Jake Fromm. So college coaches can also be wrong on the quarterbacks they pick.
Yeah, I was gonna actually say the exact same thing. Like, you think about all the running backs that have been at Bama, and you're like, well, this guy, like Derrick Henry, was so much better than some of the other dudes before him, but why did they start? Like, Trent Richardson played a ton and he was a high pick, but why did he turn out to be bad? It's like coaches and coaches and front offices are not always right on evaluating talent, is I guess the bottom line, and what Vish is kind of saying too.
Yeah, it's not always the player's fault. What I'm saying is, like, you can't always just look at it as, oh, Mac Jones is bad because he didn't start over Tua, right? You can also look at it from the same lens as, how did Nick Saban not start Mac Jones over Tua? So there's two ways to look at it. I mean, Saban's obviously the greatest of all time, so he definitely knows what he's doing. But it can also be that Mac Jones is still a pretty good quarterback too.
Yeah, and why didn't Tua start over Hurts faster? Like, you could ask that. It took a while for that to happen.
Took till the national championship game. Yeah. He was a true freshman, but still, right?
Yeah. I did want to put this up here real quick. So we do have a video coming up on this. I do a Packers weekly discussion. Vish is not there, but I still do one with a buddy of mine, and we talk about relevant Packers topics. We're a lot of Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love talk because the media loves it, and it's, I guess, fun to talk about sometimes. Not really,
for sure. Look, the Mac Jones talk, the problem is that there's a difference between the perception the league has and the perception the media has. And I think that's where everything is getting clouded, because people think Mac Jones isn't a top 10 pick solely because the media has told you for the last 4 or 5 months that Mac Jones isn't a top 10 pick, right? Mm-hmm. And the media has told you that Trey Lance, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, and Trevor Lawrence are for sure top 10 picks. But that's where this conversation gets a little fishy, because that's why the media changes their mock drafts constantly, and that's why they change a week before the draft. Like, that's why DJ Hayden, a guy who doesn't get mocked in the first round, starts getting mocked in the top 15. Bruce Irvin, a guy who didn't get mocked in the first round, starts getting mocked in the top 15, because then the way the league perceives certain players is a lot different from the way the media perceives players.
I think if you want to look at a player who's not mocked in the first round, I guess they don't have a first pick, but the Seattle Seahawks always take someone who their name never is mentioned. Jordan Brooks, Rashad Penny. I think the guy's name was Malik McDowell, the guy they took in the second a few years ago.
Michigan State, yeah.
Yeah, literally whoever the Seahawks take is not mocked in the first round. That's just the rules, basically. Now, they don't have a first rounder to waste or use, I guess. But
my point is, I do think there would be talk for Mac Jones, because I remember Mike Tannenbaum said it 2 months ago. He said that there's no way Mac Jones goes past 8. He said 8 at Carolina is the latest Mac Jones is going to go. I mean, Schefter said, GMs have said that the league views Mac Jones different from media and fans. They think he's really, really good. So I do think there would be talk regardless of what the 49ers did. That's the point I'm trying to make for Mac Jones going top 3.
Yeah, definitely.
If you see any questions, just pull them up, please.
I mean, I was kind of getting at this a little bit, but yeah, they are not the best at drafting, at least recently.
Yeah, but to be fair, it's a double-edged sword, right? Their 2011, 2012, 2010 drafts were looked at as bad drafts. Yeah, so.
Yeah.
No, honestly, I don't read much into that. I think that Shanahan's presser has been parsed and nitpicked and tried to read into too much. But the bottom line is we're probably only finding out on April 29th what the Niners are really doing, or April 28th or April 27th. What's your question? Repost it. I missed it, my man. I'll get to it. I'm paying $10 to make it clear to say the 49ers can't have a starting QB named Michael McCorkle. We just can't. Thanks as always, guys. Field Wilson at number 3. Agree. Wilson. Not on the Michael McCorkle. I could care less about that, but
sorry. I was pulling something up here. This is interesting. So we haven't really talked about this, Vish, but where do you think he should go, Trey Lance, if not to the Niners? Because I think me and you agree. We don't think the Niners should take Trey Lance at 3. He's just not the fit for the Niners, but he is for someone else. Do you think that's
in spite of Ja Amun-Ra's relentless persistence in this comment section for the last hour and 11 minutes that Trey Lance is the best quarterback in this draft? And if Ja Amun-Ra turns out to be right about Trey Lance and how good he ends up being in the NFL, then we need to do a show with Ja Amun-Ra where he can just tell us the full show why we were wrong and why he was right. But Trey Lance to the Broncos, to me, is actually pretty awesome because I think they can then afford to give Drew Lock maybe his one more year, right? And then they can just have Trey Lance. Then they can just have Trey Lance go because they could then, because Drew Lock, I like Drew Lock's talent. I think he's got a huge arm. I think he's capable of making some big time throws, but the play has not been good. You can't say anything besides the fact that he needs to play a lot better. And so because of that, I think that there's no way Denver can just go all in on Drew Lock because Vic Fangio, I think, is actually a good coach. I think Vic Fangio is a really, really good defensive coordinator. And because of that, I think that he's a big asset on any team if he's your coach. And I think the Broncos have an underrated amount of talent in terms of they have a decent offensive line. They have a really good defense. They have especially good secondary. They have good receivers, especially with Sutton coming back, who's a baller. And so because of that, they can't put all their eggs in the Drew Lock basket. And for that reason, I think Trey Lance would be better. And I actually think Trey Lance is probably better than Drew Lock right now, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm with you. So I've talked with Vish about this, but I guess I'm not the biggest fan of Drew Lock here. I think he started 16 games, COVID issues this past year and other injuries, and then he played 5 games his rookie year. He looked really like they were 4-1 in the games he started his rookie year, so I had some high hopes. Definitely did not turn out to be what I thought he could be. But yeah, his arm talent's there. Now, so Trey Lance, this is interesting to me. So I love the weapons that they have on the Broncos, right? Melvin Gordon, Noah Fant, Tim Patrick, who's really underrated, Jerry Jeudy, who I think could be special, but we'll see. And then Cortland Sutton coming back. That's a lot. Their O-line is not the best. Garrett Bowles is really good, but besides that, nothing crazy.
It's solid.
Yeah. It's okay overall. And if he sat for a year, I think that would be special. But I think the team that he better fits with would be the Panthers. Now, they have Teddy Bridgewater. They kind of gave him the bag, right? He got a little over $20 million. He wears 2 gloves.
Teddy 2 gloves?
Yeah. I'm just not the biggest fan of Teddy. I think he's a bridge quarterback, but I think a lot of people think that he's more than that. Even going back to his Vikings days. But if they get him to sit for a year on the Panthers, their offense has serious talent with McCaffrey, Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore. Now, they lost Curtis Samuel, but those other guys are special, and they're a really, really young team too. And I think Matt Rule's a pretty solid coach. This team was competitive last year. They lost by less than 5 to the Chiefs, the Packers, and I think maybe the Saints and a couple of other teams too. Like, they're really competitive. So Trey Lance to the Panthers, have him sit a year, and that would be awesome to watch.
And then the other one is obviously the Falcons, which is where everybody seems to think Trey Lance is going to go. And I personally don't see how it makes sense just because of the way they move the Matt Ryan money around. Because Matt Ryan's going to be mad expensive the next 2 years, where I don't know how they could get rid of him. And ideally, if you draft a quarterback, it's not to do what the Packers are doing with Jordan Love and sit him 2 years and develop him. It's to play him so that you can maximize your rookie quarterback contract window and get the financial flexibility and stack your rosters. So that one doesn't make sense. But in terms of what people are saying and what people seem to be convinced could be happening, that one seems to be talked about.
Yeah, I don't see the whole Lance to the Falcons thing. I know Matt Ryan's older, but like, he's not the issue with the Falcons, and they just committed to him in the future a little bit with restructuring him and making more guaranteed later. So like, that kind of signals to me like they don't want to get rid of him in the next year or two. So I don't see it. I think Pitts maybe for the Falcons, like they could go.
I think that's who they should pick. That's who in my opinion, they should pick just because of the way they made the money work out. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Julio, Pitts, Ridley. How are you guarding all three of those? And Arthur Smith looked pretty good as a play caller too. So
no, I don't think they can get a first round pick for Jimmy. That's all I'll say.
No shot. I think when they said that, Vish, basically what they were saying is
we'll be happy with the second, but we want a first.
Like, yeah, we would take it, obviously, but like, we're not going to trade him.
You think so? I think they would trade him if they got like a high second. I don't know though. Maybe they wouldn't
for a second, but I do think they want him there for the first few games until he most likely gets injured. I really think that's what's going to happen.
You think he's going to get injured?
I think he will. He's an unlucky dude, man. He's unlucky.
He's been unlucky. See, I don't understand this. Just because I don't think Trey Lance should be the pick for the Niners doesn't mean like I think Trey Lance is bad or I'm a hater or I shouldn't be cheering for Trey when he's in Niners. This is so childish. I don't get this. But I shouldn't even have pulled this comment up. That's actually on me for even responding to that. So I actually love the latter part of this. I think the best move for the Jets at this point, just because I don't think they're going to get much for Sam Darnold, is keep Sam Darnold, draft a quarterback, and just ride it out with Sam and go open competition. Whoever wins the competition, see if Sam Darnold improves with better circumstance and supporting cast, and then you move one of them because honestly, like you don't want to move off of Sam Darnold, who has shown that he has some talent, right? Yet, because his situations have sucked, because you don't know what. And I love Zach Wilson. I think Zach Wilson's better than Sam Darnold, but you don't know that for sure. And so for that reason, I actually think this is the smartest thing. This would be their smartest move, and I think this is what they should do. They should still draft Zach Wilson or whoever they like, Justin Fields, Trey Lance, Zach Wilson, whoever their favorite quarterback is, draft him and keep Sam Darnold. Because the money's not bad this year. You just don't take his fifth-year option.
Yeah, but I think that kind of leads into the thing, like, what if Sam Darnold does do good this year and you still have that guy you took second? Like, what are you going to do then?
So it's a bad good position.
That'd be a
if Darnold plays if
Darnold
plays well, but you still love the way your guy has looked in practice, because Darnold's still 23, right? That's part of the attraction. He's still so young, where there's still opportunities to salvage his career. So let's say Darnold outplays him, and you don't like what the guy looks like in practice, he's still going to have high value because if it's Zach Wilson, you could probably still unload for a second or first rounder, right? And continue to move with Sam Darnold. Or if you love the way he looks in practice, you can then maybe franchise Darnold or do something with Darnold and get something for him. So they would be playing. It's a dangerous game to play. It's a gamble, but that could be something that's like in terms of assets, in terms of what they're going to, because at this point, at this point, it looks like they're focused in on taking Zach Wilson, and it looks like they're not going to get a lot for Sam Darnold.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it all depends on what they want for Darnold, but I also just know, like, I guess I'd be annoyed with the New York media, I guess, if Darnold does end up being good, and it's just the question of would they stick with Darnold? Because, like, if Darnold does, I guess, improve a lot year over year, there will be a lot of people clamoring for Darnold, and then that's just even more pressure added to the Zach Wilson or whoever they get. So, I mean, it's an interesting thought of keeping Darnold. And
I think that's what they should do. They have picks. Yeah. They don't need a 3rd-round pick or a 4th-round pick or whatever they're currently getting for Sam Darnold. They don't need that.
I mean, they got a lot of holes on the roster. It wouldn't be the worst thing.
But to me, I feel like they have the picks and the money where at quarterback, I feel like this is a risk worth taking.
And just having him there to develop more and maybe like
compete for the job. Because the Jets aren't in a position like – how many quarterbacks have the Jets taken in the top 5?
Many besides Darnold? Like,
well, they went Sanchez, Darnold, Wilson, and that's just in my lifetime. And Sanchez went in 2009. So in the last 12 years,
yeah, that was a minute ago, but yeah, still interesting. The Sanchez, he looked promising. He did.
Why is the league in love with mobile quarterbacks? They haven't won a thing in the NFL. Mahomes is a pocket passer that's a mobile quarterback first. You're right. This was to me what Kyle Shanahan's point in his presser was. I think that in an ideal world, you want to have Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers, guys that win from the pocket and play quarterback, and then when things break down, can run around and make a bunch of plays with their legs and throwing the football like that. But I think the number one thing for a quarterback is still that you got to be able to win from the pocket first. And I think Mahomes wins from the pocket first. Deshaun Watson wins from the pocket first. Aaron Rodgers wins from the pocket first. Josh Allen wins from the pocket first. Even Lamar Jackson, if you watch Lamar Jackson now, they have a terrible drop back pass scheme. Well, Lamar Jackson is very accurate short to intermediate, and he's a very good decision maker short to intermediate. So he's really good between the numbers as a thrower too, and he wins from the pocket. So the bottom line is that the NFL is still a game where you have to win from the pocket. But the added mobility, in my opinion, does make a difference, because here's where, before you go, Blake, and here's where I think, even though I like Mac Jones, I think he might throw a lot of picks early in his career. Because the thing is that if you're a mobile quarterback and you see a look on defense that you haven't seen before, you don't know what to do. Even Joe Burrow last year benefited from it, is you can run out. You can run out of the play. You don't have to throw where you think you're supposed to go with the ball and make a mistake, because you can just run away and make a play with your athleticism. And then hopefully you learn that and you can then win from the pocket the next play. But if you're Mac Jones, right, you're gonna learn the hard way by throwing an interception or turning over the ball, because you're just not physically capable of just running out of a bad play, because there's nothing you can really do in terms of your athleticism. So that's what I would say with that. But the NFL, at the end of the day, it is still a game where you got to win from the pocket first.
So I guess my question would be, what do you categorize as a mobile quarterback? Like, I would say Josh Allen's pretty mobile. I'd say Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, he's definitely a mobile quarterback. All of them are mobile.
I guess, like,
I think what he's trying to say is he would rather have the Kirk Cousins, the Ryan Tannehills. I mean, even Tannehill's pretty athletic, but Kirk Cousins, who wins from the pocket within the offense first, than have a guy who's a really good athlete and can run around. But
Kyler Murray,
like, what are you going to get from that? I mean, Kyler Murray, like if Kyler Murray's – I'm the biggest Kyler Murray fan, but if Kyler Murray's process and functioning within the pocket doesn't improve, then there's going to be a problem for Kyler Murray in terms of how high he actually ends up realizing his great potential, because he's got special arm talent and special legs.
Okay. I guess I don't know, like the question's interesting.
This is a great characterization. And I'd argue even to an extent, like mobility, like pocket mobility to me also makes a difference. Like Brady isn't mobile, but Brady has some of the best pocket mobility in the history of the NFL. Yeah. So at the end of the day, you do have to be mobile. But I think I think the two things you have to be is mobile, and you have to be capable of throwing off platform in cluttered pockets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I guess the point of the question is like,
it's an interesting premise. It's a really good topic.
Mm-hmm. No, it's definitely a good point.
Go ahead. My bad. I interrupted you. What were you going to say with the point of the question?
Bring this up. So me and Vish, I guess that doesn't have the nicest words in there, but
yeah, we can say that.
There was just okay. Vish and I were actually going to do this for this video. We're going to talk about Lamar because we have some thoughts on it. We didn't end up doing it, but in the very near future, hopefully next week, we're going to talk about Lamar because we have some thoughts on it that maybe not everyone sees or everyone like talks about. And so that's coming soon. So for all the people, he's a very polarizing player and people either love him or hate him. So we have some thoughts on him, basically, is bottom line.
Yeah, and we're both big Lamar fans. I'll say that right now. We both think that, sorry, Carlos. we're Lamar guys. But I'd encourage you to listen to what we have to say. And if you disagree with it still, then you disagree with it, and that's fair. But at least we would like to present a fair argument for Lamar.
Mm-hmm.
I think Vic had more talent in terms of his arm, in terms of being a deep thrower and his ability to throw the ball down the field. Because Vic had an easy release. He flicked the ball with his left hand, and that ball was launched. But I think Lamar is actually a better short to intermediate thrower and decision maker. Like, I don't think people understand how bad the Ravens' pass game is. I've never seen a pass game where two guys run into each other on routes more than with the Baltimore Ravens. So I think that's a little bit of a problem when you have that issue. But I think Lamar is a good decision maker, and I think he's an accurate thrower, especially between the numbers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I'm with you. Like, I think you watch any Mike Vick games and you see him like flinging the ball. Like, he would flick his wrist and the ball's like 60 yards downfield. Like, he had a huge arm, but he really wasn't like the greatest passer until the Eagles days with Andy Reid. Until then, he was more of just like make magic happen and wasn't the best at actually like completing passes and that type of thing.
He said it right. He said that he didn't take like studying and stuff as seriously until he got to the Eagles, but he was just so special as an athlete that he could just carry an entire team. Mm-hmm. But Lamar, by all accounts, seems to be one of the hardest workers in the NFL. I mean, every year I feel like Lamar's game improves in terms of how he sees the field, his throwing, everything. So I don't have that question with Lamar, and I don't think people should have it.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think Vic probably was the more talented player. I think Vic was faster too than Lamar, which is kind of crazy to say because Lamar is just.
Yeah. No, it's interesting.
I like this one. Yeah, I probably like Lamar more than Fields, honestly, just because Lamar's an MVP and a proven commodity. And if Justin Fields I love Justin Fields, but for me to project today that he's going to become the MVP of the NFL, hard to say.
Yeah, it's I mean, you can't even really answer it at this point, right? They're in completely different spots of career and whatnot, but interesting.
This is such a. I mean, the Titans obviously would not be good without Derrick Henry. He's their best player, but they have won games on Ryan Tannehill's back multiple times. They did it last year. He wins a lot of close games. And two, Derrick Henry was not this Derrick Henry when Marcus Mariota was the quarterback. That's clear as day. their offense is complementary football, and it functions because they go run with Henry, and they're pushing the ball down the field. Tannehill makes big boy throws, and he's very, very accurate at throwing them and throwing the ball down the field. He's a good decision maker. I think that Tannehill is very good, actually.
Yeah, he really is like super accurate and all that. I think Henry's benefited maybe the most out of anyone with Tannehill being in there. I mean, their team wasn't really all that good with Mariota, and if you remember the DeMarco Murray years of him being on the Titans, and he was really good for them too. And Henry didn't really even play his first 2 years. He was the backup to Murray. Crazy to think about.
Yeah. And the thing with they went to the playoffs with Mariota. Nobody looked at their offense the way they look at it now. They have a top 5 offense in football. At least they did with Tannehill, Jonnu Smith, Corey Davis, AJ Brown, and Henry. My God. And their offensive line sucked last year once Taylor Lewan got hurt. It sucked. Yeah.
They lost Conklin from the season before too, which definitely was a pretty big loss.
Right. Blake, if you see any more questions, maybe we can hit them or maybe we can call it. I did see a question about Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert that I wanted to hit. I can't find it right now, though.
Yeah, it was who's better? We could do that in the future, possibly. I would have to see some more Burrow and Herbert. I'm a huge Herbert guy after watching him. I didn't like him in pre-draft. I should have watched him more. But, yeah, watching him play last year with just I'm not an Anthony Lynn fan. He's not my favorite coach. And their O-line was porous, and he still looked like a beast. So,
yeah, I'm gonna say that even if Burrow was healthy, I love Joe Burrow. But I'm gonna still say that Justin Herbert would have been the better quarterback, and that's solely because of the arm talent. And I think Joe Burrow was a very strong arm away from probably being one of the great quarterback prospects of all time. Just because of all the things he showed. Yeah, and but the problem is he has a bottom 5'6" arm in the NFL. His arm is really not that strong, and I thought it showed last year. I think with Justin Herbert, we're just talking about a rocket. We're talking about Carson Palmer type throwing in terms of his ability to throw. So for that reason, I think Herbert would still be better.
Yeah, I do want to watch Burrow more in depth. I've seen a good amount of Herbert, but maybe him too, but this will be something over the next 5 to 10 years that I think gets debated super heavily, Vish. So
fingers crossed that Burrow comes back and is Joe Burrow. And
please, Cincinnati, take some linemen. We don't want to see what happened with Andrew Luck to Joe Burrow.
Please take Penei Sewell instead of Jamar Chase.
Exactly. I'm with
Nothing against Jamar Chase. Just take Penei Sewell.
Mm-hmm. With you.
Or Rashawn Slater, whoever you like.
Yep.
So, Blake, if you see maybe another question, maybe we'll go for it. Otherwise, we'll call it. I think hour 30 minutes. Yeah, go Lions.
Quickly. Interesting. What are your thoughts on what do you think about the Lions right now, Vish? Do you have any thoughts on them? Because no one talks about them, obviously. It's the Detroit Lions.
I don't like any team that has Jared Goff as their quarterback. That's just the way I feel about it. But I don't think the Lions situation is as terrible. Patricia and Bob Quinn had a lot of bad moves and a lot of missteps. And I actually think what they did this offseason is a promising way for you to look at. I thought Romeo Okwara was a really good acquisition for them. I think Goff is good enough to kind of just be their quarterback to kind of figure things out the next couple years in terms of how they want to rebuild this team and all of that.
No, dude, I'm with you. Low-key, the Lions have made solid moves to just say, we know we're not good. We're just going to rebuild and just tear it all down and build from the ground up instead of some of these other teams. I'd almost rather be in the Lions position than the Bears because, realistically, the Bears roster is a little older. They're not in a full tear down rebuild, but they're also not going all in to win. So they're kind of stuck in that they're not going to win less than 4 games, but they're not going to win more than 8. The 10 to 20 or 8 to 20 range for picks. So go Lions.
Yeah. The other thing with the Lions is that I think one of the more underrated things is for the first time in Matthew Stafford's career last year, they had a real run game. When DeAndre Swift was healthy, and
Yeah.
they have an all-pro center in Frank Ragnow, so they have a real decent offensive line and a real run game. And I think that with Anthony Lynn, Blake, I know you're not the biggest fan of Anthony Lynn, and I wasn't the biggest fan of his fit for Justin Herbert. But in terms of as an offensive coordinator, and he's a really good run game coordinator, Detroit's going to be able to run the football. And one thing we do know about Jared Goff is that he's solid when in clean pockets off play action. That's something he can do. And Detroit's going to give him that those opportunities. So, and they also got a chance to get a receiver for him too. Again, they're going to get one of Kyle Pitts, Jamar Chase, Devonta Smith. Just the way the draft is going to fall, they got a really good chance at getting one of those guys, or even getting Jalen Waddle. So they're in a pretty decent spot.
Yeah, I was going to say DeAndre Swift looks like he can actually be pretty legit for the Lions as like a good running back. And they have a good line too. It's like it's actually pretty good. And hopefully their defense can pick it up if you're a Lions fan, because haven't been the best. But yeah, we'll talk. We'll have to talk more Lions later. So thanks for the sub, Donber. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So yeah, that's it. I feel like we've reached the end. There's been a lot of really good questions. Don't worry, guys. We will be back and we will answer all your questions in regards to the draft. We got a couple other good stuff in the works coming, and we'll also be here to listen to why we're wrong about the draft. I mean, clearly there were a lot of strong opinions in the chat today, and you guys feel really strongly that we're wrong, and we're ready to listen to why, because we want to know what you guys got to say. So we'll definitely talk about it a bit more. And thank you for joining us and sticking with us. Please like, subscribe. We appreciate all of your support, and we'll be back soon. Blake, can we do a live stream draft? We will.
The week before the draft, we're planning on like going through. We're only doing one though, because it's pretty time consuming, and it's
not worth it to do like 50 of them. We will do one. We will do one mock draft. We will do it the week of the draft, and what we will do is we'll just do what we think each of those teams should pick, and we'll alternate. Blake will go take a pick, and I'll go a pick. I'm hoping I get the first pick because that one's a little easier than the rest of them, but
yeah, exactly.
And then do you want to just address this? I do think hand size does make somewhat of a difference, or at least I thought I did, because everybody who played and stuff says that it does make a difference. The thing is that for whatever reason, like Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, those guys have like 9.5, 9.25 inch arms that are supposed to be smaller, and they've had no problems throwing the ball in weather. So at this point, I actually have no clue now.
I think it's one of the things, like, if you have it, if your hand is bigger, it's better. But like, if it's not, it's like, it's preferred to be bigger than not.
It's not going to change, right?
It's not a death sentence if you don't have a big hand and you're playing quarterback.
But you would prefer for the guy to have big hands.
Yes.
All right, guys. So we've reached the end. Again, thank you so much for sticking with us. There were a lot of questions we didn't get to. We apologize for that. We'll get to them later. Please keep coming in, and we definitely will answer a lot of them. We're hoping to also get the new StreamYard, so you can also join us through Twitter and not just through YouTube. We'll be streaming from my Twitter and YouTube, which would be pretty cool to do. Thank you so much for joining us. Please like, subscribe, all of that, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.